ready to go. Hands locked tight on the wheel, I can taste that rubber peel. Realize that I hold my breath, one blink more than go for that. Slam that pedal, let it bite, I live for the first turn fight. Clip that curve, don't lose the line, one clean move and I take mine. Side by side, I won't fold, this small track makes me bold. Snap, but I don't freak. Red flag on, I'm back in motion. Sharp little world, full speed devotion. Red tie twitch, front end dips. I correct it with my fingertips. Every corner tries to test. I keep my nerve and beat the rest. Clip that curve, don't lose the line. One clean move and I take mine. Side by side, I won't fold. This small track makes me bold.
Herzlich willkommen, guten Morgen hier aus Kerpen, Finaltag bei der DKM. Und Alex, was wartet heute auf uns?
Well, this morning, ladies and gentlemen, we have our super heats through the respective categories. Of course, with the KZ2 Cup division being 48 drivers strong. After this point in this round of the season, the top 36 go into the afternoon's finals. But 14 exciting races yesterday. The super heats, they're going to be that little bit more intense, Björn.
Ja, auf jeden Fall. Und die Minis bauen hier schon auf. Da geht es gleich drum. Und direkt in der ersten Reihe Maddox Mason und Paulsen. Also beide mit Favoriten in der Meisterschaft, aber auch in den anderen Klassen, gerade bei den OKN Junior und OKN, haben wir auch die Favoriten vorne stehen.
Yeah, Jakub Kamenik in OKN and Henry Möhring in OKN Junior. They could wrap up the title this afternoon, folks, but I think really there is an unpredictable nature about being in the penultimate round of the championship where we could see all 5 titles go down to the wire at Wackersdorf in late September, Björn.
Ja, und dann haben wir noch einen Punkt, das Wetter. Es könnte heute Nachmittag vielleicht regnen, aber da lassen wir uns einfach mal überraschen. Jetzt ist es auf jeden Fall trocken und ein bisschen kühler, also beste Bedingungen zum Kartfahren heute. Ich freue mich drauf, wir sind gespannt und wir hoffen, ihr schaut genauso zahlreich zu wie gestern. Da haben wir uns sehr darüber gefreut. Und ja, jetzt geht's gleich los. Das 3-Minuten-Schild ist schon in der Hand.
Yep, so 3 minutes to go before we go racing here on day 2, round 4 DKM 2026. Stick with us here live on YouTube and also catch up with our DKM social media channels.
So the 3-minute board goes out und von meiner Seite, meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren und liebe Motorsportfreunde. Wir sind hier bei Renntag Nummer 2 am heutigen Sonntag für den 4. Runde von DKM Saison 2026 und das Wetter, wie Björn früher gesagt habe, ist ein bisschen mehr angenehm wie die letzten paar Tagen hier in Nordrhein-Westfalen. So weather very much on the cooler side. It's going to give the drivers a little bit less of exertion, but nevertheless with the adrenaline coursing through their veins. We have 6 super heats this morning. KZ2 Cup will take part in 2 respective super heats. And from the 48 that joined us for this race weekend, the top 36 will go into the final. And KZ2 Cup will close the action. We will be live streaming on the ADAC Motorsport YouTube channel for part 1, which will be this morning. And then after the lunch break, we'll have our 5 finals, and then we really up the ante. The distances do increase around this famed track that has seen the likes of Michael and Ralf Schumacher and Sebastian Vettel, Timo Glock, Stoffel Vandoorne, Jos Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton. Ayrton Senna has even raced here back in his days in karting when he raced it alongside former teammates and British karting legend Terry Fullerton back in the 1970s before Senna moved over to the UK, then drove against Martin Brundle in Formula 3000 and then got his start with Tolman in Formula 1 before becoming a 3-time Formula 1 world champion in his own right. But these drivers, we're going to have 21 in the mini class because Leandros Margaritis in the 309 was checked over yesterday after an incident that saw a red flag stoppage in the second mini qualifying heat. Aber von diesem Punkt ist es richtig, wenn es gibt Vollgas mit Adrenalin und Gänsehaut pur hier in Nordrhein-Westfalen. Wir haben bei dem Mini-Superheat 10 Runden insgesamt und bei die Finale um 13 Uhr heute Nachmittag 13 Runden für die Mini-Klasse. Aber 2 verschiedene Sieger gestern bei Qualifying Heat Nummer 1. Der Südafrikaner ADAC Mason war der Sieger und auch der Führende in die Meisterschaftswertung aus Dänemark. Albert Poulsen auf der Startnummer 395 hat den 2. Qualifying Heat gewonnen. So, hier ist die Startaufstellung für den Superheat für die Miniklasse. Auf der Pole Position startet der ADAC Mason und auf seiner linken Seite bei der ersten Reihe startet Albert Poulsen, die Führende in die Meisterschaftswertung. Dann auf Reihe Nummer 2 Dio Klock und Ben Bernhard. Dann folgt Noah Sulitka und Niklas Lundholm auf Reihe Nummer 3. Vincent Colaberizo und Roman Meister auf Reihe 4 und dann die letzten 2 Piloten auf den Top 10 sind Oscar Beumers und Chris Leon Kalweit. Auf Platz 11 startet der Bastian Kleiner, Startnummer 315, mit Elias Dahlmann auf den 320 auf die linke Seite. Auf Reihe Nummer 7 startet Nick Meyer und Luca Matis Brixius. Dann folgt Case Moyes und Jay Vermeulen auf Reihe 8. Dann folgt Philipp Franz, Amisio San, Noah Kim und der 333 Leon Ossai. So, deswegen gibt es 21 Piloten, die über die nächsten 10 Runden wird hart kämpfen hinter dem Steuer. So a very, very dramatic and exciting race day. 14 qualifying heats meant that we had drivers put to the pole positions for the respective super heats, and one of 3 South Africans on this grid, following in the footsteps of the likes of Kelvin van der Linde, Sheldon van der Linde and Jordan Pepper, who currently competes over here in continental Europe and further afield, following in the footsteps of 1979 Formula 1 world champion with Scuderia Ferrari, Jody Scheckter. We do have a great crop of talents from South Africa venturing further afield. But it is going to be ADAC Mason and Albert Poulsen that lead us through Mutkurva before we head into the Schumacher chicane ahead of 10 laps. Proceedings overlooked by race director Kevin Meinhardt and his team, but it is now the run to victory. The real battle for the titles start here and now. Into the tram lines, lights are on, full start called. Leider ist der Start nicht an diesem Punkt freigegeben, weil unser Race Director Kevin Meinhardt nochmal eine Information läuft. Hier auf diesen 1107 Meter langen Streckenkurs hier in Kerpen. So they go around for another 1.1 kilometers. And it is going to be a tricky one because yesterday we saw some very, very close competitive battles between the mini drivers. The youngest of our competitors with a paddock literally nearly bursting at the seams here just off of Faralaga Kurve, paddock corner at the final corner here at Kerpen. But lots of opportunities can present themselves, but they are minimal at best. Spitzkerper, turn 2. Leikert-Kurve, turn 4. Tripskurve, turn 8. Even Mudkurve, we saw drivers getting the slingshot and going to the inside. And even coming out of paddock corner, Faralaga Kurve, the last turn at this circuit. Aber nochmal ein zweites Versuch hier bei dem Rennstart hier in den Superheat. Wir sind grün, Start ist freigegeben. Und einen guten Start von den beiden auf den rechten Seite von den Startaufstellungen. Maddox Mason vorne von Leo Klock. Dann kommt innerseits, ich denke, das war der Pilot aus Tschechien, Neusulika, auf den Startnummer 337. Jetzt bis zum Leikert-Kurve, Kurve 4, wo man links biegt. Und jetzt bis zum Tripskurve an Kurve Nummer 8 geht das ganze Feld. Aber im Moment bleibt der Südafrikaner, der 329 von Lanari Racing Team am Spitze des Felds. Und ganz kurz hinten ist der Holländer Leo Klock auf der 394, jetzt auf Platz 2. So, Maddox Mason leads us over the line to complete lap 1 out of 10. And Leo Klock right on his rear bumper, drafting his way down into Spitzkerper. Poulsen to the inside, gets through. Neat maneuver by the 395. The current points leader coming into this race weekend here at Kerpen as they head into Leikert-Kurve here at turn 4. And again, it's musical chairs for second and third at the minute, whereas Maddox Mason, the younger brother of Matteo Mason, who we'll see in action in the OKN Junior Division very soon. Along with that, we do have another South African in the grid, Roel van Maritz, who will also be running in OKN Junior a little bit later on this morning. Aber bleibt der Südafrikaner am Spitze des Felds in Startnummer 329 mit einem Vorsprung über der Leo Klock. Knapp unter 2 Zehntel eine Sekunde und nochmal ein Angriff kommt von Richtung Poulsen gegen Klock in Spitzkerper. Aber leider für den Däner kann das nicht passen. Und wie gestern ein kleines Rückkehr, a recovery drive from Kees Moyes in the 327 from the Netherlands, who was already sprung his way up from 16th on the start grid. He is now up to P8. Fastest lap of the race by the 327 for CS competition on the Sodi Kart, 50.227. Poulsen breathing down the back of the race overalls of Leo Klock as they go into Faralaga Kurve as we are about to complete lap number 3. 7 to go. Just over 7.7 kilometers remain, and the top 3 starting to break away. Leo Klock has tried to cover off Albert Poulsen, does that nice and neatly, gets the elbows out, does the young Dutchman. But this is giving Maddox Mason from the Lanari Racing Team in the 329, one of the championship hopefuls. Aber jetzt kommt eine Zeitbestrafung, 5 Sekunden für Startnummer 323. Pech leider für den Däner Mikas Lundsholm auf Platz 9. So Mikas Lundsholm gets a 5-second time penalty for pushing as found by race control. But Mason and Klock leading the way. Poulsen still holding on to P3. Ben Bernhard has been making a good account of himself in the 381. Currently hits P4 ahead of Norris Sulitka. Kees Moyes, der Holländer jetzt springt von Platz 8 jetzt bis zum Platz 6. Nochmal eine schnellste Runde bei der Holländer. Und nochmal eine Bestrafung für den Startnummer 322. Roman Meister. 5 Sekunden Bestrafung nach dem Rennen für Pushing. So unfortunately, Roman Meister, another driver that has been found to be pushing as by Race Control. Aber jetzt Wechsel am Spitze. Klock vorne von Mason. Nach Mutkurve bis zum Schumacher-Schikane. Jetzt Fahrlagerkurve. Nochmal ein zweiter verschiedener Fahrer. Der ist am Spitze des Felds. Jetzt der Holländer Leo Klock auf dem Startnummer 394. Und ein hartes Zweikampf zwischen der Holländer und der Pilot aus Südafrika. Great battle between the top two. This is giving Albert Poulsen all the opportunity to stick with them. Cage Moyes dives to the inside, and that is through on Ben Bernhardt, I believe, in the 381. Cage Moyes from 16th on the grid, now up 12 positions, and there he is. Now he's got some clean air between himself and Albert Poulsen, and now he can go hunting. Aber was für eine Leistung für der Holländer, der 327 auf der Sodi Cup von CS Competition. Cage Moyes von Platz 16 auf der Startaufstellung, jetzt auf Platz 4, vorne von Ben Bernhardt, und auf Platz 6 der Pilot aus Tschetschen, der neue Solidka, 337. Dann sind Bastian Kleiner auf Platz 7, vorne von Roman Meister, der hat eine Bestrafung. Auch der Mika Sundsom auf Platz 9 hat die gleiche Bestrafung für Pushing. Und auch bei der 330 Oskar Bäumes aus Deutschland. Jetzt bleibt auf Platz 7. Danach diese Runde Nummer 7 von 10. Wir haben 3 Runden bis zum schwarz-weiß karierte Flagge. So 3 laps to go coming up until the checkered flag, and Maddox Mason needs to get a wiggle. Needs to get a wriggle on here. He needs to get past Leo Klock, and now comes his biggest opportunity, as they're going to be north of 110 kilometers an hour, going through the quick right-hander after the start-finish line. And Mason, last-minute switch to the inside he goes. And that is through. Leo Klock tries to counter-attack, but he's between a bit of a rock and a hard place as the young Dutchman, because Albert Poulsen could have sensed an opportunity and through into Leichhardt Curve. Oh, well, there you go. One opens the door and the other one follows in the wheel tracks. Leo Klock gets through, Albert Poulsen through, Maddox Mason now demoted down to P3. But who's not to say that lightning could strike twice in the same place? But Cage Moyes is catching at a rapid rate of speed through Mutkurve, now into the Schumacher chicane. This is going to be a crucial point because we've got 2.2 kilometers to go. Leo Klock at the minute has got a gap of just over 2 tenths. Mason in the slipstream of Poulsen down into Spitzkehrer for the penultimate time. And look at that late dive. Beautifully done. And can Maddox Mason get the buy one, get one free special? He has. He was round the outside going into 3. Beautifully done by the South African. And here comes Cage Moyes. They do say 3 is a crowd, but 4 is a gaggle. And Cage Moyes is going to add a real big intensity as we have just under 1.5 laps remaining on the counter through Mutkurve for the penultimate time on lap 9 out of 10. I know what Cage Moyes is capable of, and he is definitely more than throwing his weight about. He's definitely showcasing what's going to happen. It's going to be wheel to wheel by the leaders across the line. Letzte Runde läuft. Mason vorne von Poulsen. Jetzt bis zum Spitzkehrer zum letzten Mal. Und jetzt kommt das Angriff hinter Leo Klock von seinem Landesmann Cage Moyes. Ein Vierkampf am Spitze des Felds, aber der Südafrikaner bleibt am Spitze in dieser wichtige Moment bei dieser letzten Runde dieses Rennen bei Mini Superheats. But what a run. Maddox Mason has definitely made sure that he was in the right place at the right time. Takes a glance over the right shoulder. Leo Klock tempting fate here, right on the wheel tracks of Albert Poulsen. Cage Moyes has got a good run of speed coming out of Mutkurve through the Schumacher chicane for the final time. And it is South Africa's Maddox Mason that wins the mini superheat. Poulsen P2, Klock P3, Cage Moyes. Welcome to the party, my friend. 16th to 4th. And he could have been so much in contention for the victory. Aber Gratulation für der Startnummer 329 beim Mini Superheat. Rennsieger Maddox Mason und den Vorteil über Albert Paulsen über 7 Zehntel eine Sekunde. Vorne von Leo Klock auf Platz 3, von Platz 16 bis zum Platz 4. Was für eine Leistung für der Holländer von CS Competition, Kees Moyes. Dann kommt der Ben Bernhard über Start und Ziel in Platz 5, vorne von Louis Solidka. Bastian Kleiner, Platz 7, vorne von Mikas Lunsholm. Oscar Bäumers auf Platz 9, vorne von der Roman Meister auf Platz 10. Dann Chris Leon Calveit, Vincent Oliveriso, Leon Ossey auf Platz 13 über Start und Ziel. Starke Leistung für die 333, vorne von Elias Dahlmann, Nick Meyer, Matthias Cavulaire, Luca Mathis Brixius, Jay Vermeulen, Noah Kim und Philipp Pflanz auf Platz 20 und Amisio Sani über Start und Ziel auf Platz 21. Das war's für Mini bei dem Superheat. Und das nächste Rennen OKN Junior.
ready to go. Hands locked tight on the wheel, I can taste that rubber peel. Realize that I hold my breath, one blink more than go for that. Slam that pedal, let it bite. I live for the first turn fight. Clip that curve, don't lose the line. One clean move and I take mine. Side by side, I won't fold. This small track makes me bold.
So, wir sind wieder zurück, meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren und liebe Motorsportfreunde hier bei Kerpen für den nächsten Superheat für den OKN Junior Klasse hier in Nordrhein-Westfalen. Nach dem Ranking After Heats steht auf Spitze natürlich der 214 von der Motorsport, der Henry Möhring, der startet auf der Pole Position und er hat über den 2 Qualifying Heats 94 Punkte. Er hat den zweites Qualifying Heat gewonnen, war Zweiter in den ersten und hat den gleichmäßig Punkte wie der Carlos Nies, der 222. Aber für Möhring, er war schnellster in Time Qualifying, deswegen ist er auf Spitze des Ranking After Heats nach dem zwei Qualifying Heats gestern Nachmittag. So Henry Möhring and Carlos Nies tied on 94 points apiece after the ranking after heats, but Carlos Nies qualified third, Henry Möhring qualified P1, which means that the 214, who could be one of two drivers that wraps up a title this afternoon, is one step closer to doing so. Milan Rossi rounds out the top three, having secured 82 points over the qualifying heats. Then Maxim Bobrishov for Ricky Flynn Motorsports in the number 230, followed by Kraft Motorsports number 226, Gillian Dimmer. A strong result for the youngster, a 34 and a 32nd in the two-point score in the two races yesterday, followed by Edin Kesarovic, who was given a post-race penalty in qualifying heat 2, would have put the teammates of Milan Rossi more than likely on the outside of the second row. But the grid very shortly will be cleared ahead of what will be a very, very interesting race. And for OKN Junior, 14 laps of the 1.107 kilometer circuit here in Kerpen. And we are going to have a very, very busy grid. But as we saw in the mini superheat just a few moments ago, it is always about being in the right place at the right time. Some drivers needing to make some moves early in this race, one of which is the 228, the older brother of Maddox Mason, who we just saw take the win in the superheat for minis. His older brother, Matteo, is going to be starting all the way down on the inside of row 10. So if Matteo Mason wants to stop Henry Möhring from trying to get those required points to take the title this afternoon in the final, then he's got to bring something magical to this particular race. And then we'll have 4 more super heats before we call time for lunch. And then it will be the big build-up to the business end of this penultimate round of the championship season. So, eine Minute bis zum 2 Formationsrunde hier im Kerpen für den zweiten Superheat am heutigen Sonntagmorgen hier in Kerpen für den OKN Junior Klasse. So 30-second board goes out as Maxim Bobrishov calmly steps into the 230 Ricky Flynn machine. So, 14 Runden für den OKN Junior Superheat hier am heutigen Sonntagmorgen bei DKM Runde Nummer 4. 2026, hier ist die Startaufstellung. Henry Möhring und Carlos Nies auf dem ersten Reihe, vorne von Milan Rossi und Maxim Bobrischow. Dann kommt Julian Dimmer und Edin Keserovic. Auf Reihe Nummer 4, Elliot Spankov und Sebastian Brandt. Gustav Christensen und Emilie Olaus auf Platz 9 und 10, vorne von Nico Taffelmeier und Bruno Kreiling. Auf Reihe Nummer 7, Paul Bernhard und Nick Ried. Vorne von Andrei Udreschny, Jonas Pundis, Pierre Wolf, Milos Beginski und auf den 10. Reihe startet der 228 Matteo Mason, neben ihm der Däner Christian Rasmussen. Die letzten 9 Piloten auf dem Grid sind Patrick Ray Reinhardt, Ben Schumacher, Ruvan Maritz, Stavros Sotos Francia, Amelie Heuvers, Peter Meitz, Lennart Utsch, Alex Häuser und auf Platz 29, Startnummer 212, Jonathan Meyer. It is the calm before the storm. And here is the championship update. Henry Möhring, 3:21, plays 2:49. Milan Rossi is effectively, let's put it this way, a little bit further adrift of Henry Möhring. And if that points advantage by the end of the final hits 101 or more, Möhring is the champion for the inaugural season. Carlos Nies rounds out the top 3. We will be giving you live scores as they proceed over the course of this penultimate round of the championship season. But now the drivers need to get into position. Und leider ist der Start dieses Mal noch wie in die Mini-Superheat. Erster Start ist nicht leider freigegeben. And the drivers basically told, right, you've got to get back in there, refocus, and do it all over again. And we did have, I think it was one of the mini heats yesterday, where they were given 3 opportunities to get the start correct, and the third time of asking, third time's a charm, they got it done. Ruhe bevor den Sturm, meine sehr geehrte Damen und Herren. The calm before the storm here in OKN Junior. Aber der Henry Möhring hat viele starke Konkurrenten hinter auf diesem wichtigen Superheat für die Meisterschaftswertung in Saison 2026. Wir sind bereit, zweites Mal Versuch und nein, leider nicht, ist der Start freigegeben bei unserem Race Director hier in Kerpen. Ich denke, dass es gibt ein bisschen mehr als ein bisschen Adrenalin und auch vielleicht ein bisschen Nervosität für den Start. Das muss in Augen unserer Rennleiters, Renndirektor sein perfekt so. Yeah? It should be in the eyes of our race director. It's got to be, you know, they were already explained in the driver's briefing. These drivers know the score, and red flag has been brandished. I'm not at all surprised. So that means the drivers will be heading to the start-finish straight and will be stopped. And then our race director will go over and speak to the required individuals that need a little bit of a talking to. Now, this is not about telling people off. This is just about reinforcing and re-education, just saying, you know, you've been in karting, you know what the score is, and this is just, when you get to these final, you know, these race days, there is a lot of tension. These young drivers at this age put so much pressure on themselves. Look at that for a straight line on the start-finish straight. Well played by Henry Murray and Carlos Nees, making sure that everyone is in a straight line as you see all the mechanics make their way onto the start-finish grid. So our race director is going to have a chat with the entire grid. So, and some of them have got a little bit of a walk to get down to the start-finish line. But that is part and parcel of racing. Right, we are just a few seconds away from the restart after the red flag stoppage. After 2 full starts here in OKN Junior. 13 laps of this 1.107 kilometer circuit. So the drivers now make their way around the track. Let's just give you a reminder of the starting order. It's going to be Henry Möhring and Carlos Nees on the front row. Milan Rossi and Maxim Bobrishov, row 2. Julian Dummer and Edin Keserovic, row 3. Elliot Spankov from Denmark, joined by Germany, Sebastian Brand on row 4. Gustav Christensen from Sweden, and Emilio Olas rounding out the top 10. Tafelmeyer, Greiling, Bernhard, Ried, Udrescu, Pundis, Wolf, Beginski, Matteo Mason starting all the way down in 19th, joined by Denmark's Christian Rasmussen on row 10. Patrick Ray Reinhardt, Ben Schumacher, Ruben Marhetz, Stavros Sotos Francia, Amelie Hoivers, Peter Mikes, Leonard Uch, Alex Heuser, and bringing up the rear of the 29th gone field, Jonathan Meyer. So this could be step number 2 that Henry Möhring may take in towards a push for the title, which could be decided as early as the final later on today. But the red lights are on the gantry here for 13 laps of this very tight, very technical, very fast-flowing circuit here in Western Germany. So, gleich geht's los. Start ist diesmal freigegeben. Dann die lange Gerade bis zum Spitzkehrer hier in Kurve Nummer 2. Möhring bleibt am Spitze. Innerseits geht der Milan Rossi, innerseits von Carlos Nees jetzt auf Platz 2. Aber leider gibt es Pech für ein paar Piloten nach Spitzkehrer. Habe ich schon kurz einen am Start und Ziel, Doppelgelb, Flagge. Heftiges Unfall nach Kurve 1. 3 Piloten in den Unfall. Francia, Hoivers und Mikes. Rasmussen hat leider dieses Rennen nicht gestartet. So, big incident off of turn 1. So, double wave yellows, full course slow, full course slow. So, again, this has now neutralized what has been a very dramatic start to the OKN Junior Superheat. And that's not exactly what a lot of the drivers, I think in particular Henry Möhring, who's at the sharp end of the field, will want. But this is a case of a full course yellow. Is a bit like a virtual safety car in Formula 1. It is slow down, stay single file, and in some cases you may be required to stop if a red flag is thereby brandished. But we have got part of the ambulance crew there on the scene. So the full course slow is effectively a way of neutralizing the race, keeping the race going. And so from a 13-lap superheat, we could end up maybe with a few laps where the pressure is really, really on. So this is very, very decisive. But Henry Möhring will take us on the single file restart once we get to that point. So that brings us to 25 out of 28 starters. So the drivers weaving from side to side just to keep the temperature in the tyres once they go past the point of no return. So Francia, Hoivers and Mikes are all out. One of the drivers walking away, which is good to see. It looks like all 3 drivers, I think, are, yes, they're all on their feet, all under their own, walking under their own power, which is the best thing considering the circumstances. So once everything has been cleared, we will be set and ready to go racing. And looking over to the other side of the track, just off of Mutkova, you can see the amount of people watching from the sidelines. The atmosphere is on a precipice, but Henry Möhring will take the restart now with the full course slow. Once the yellow flags stop waving, we are 1 lap away from going back to green. So nach dieser Runde sind wir wieder auf grün. Oh, jetzt ein Dreher am Hinten des Felds. Das war der welche Nummer war das? Den 255, denke ich. Alex Häuser, 180 Grad selbst gedreht. Und jetzt ist bei ihm leider das Rennen an diesem Punkt jetzt vorbei. Nach Runde Nummer 3 von 13. So Alex Häuser rotates 180 degrees at the back end of the field. And go on to the last lap of the full course slow. So Henry Möhring will be the one to take us back to green here at Kerpen. And it will be a single file restart. So the restart will be Möhring, Rossi, Nies, Dümmer, Bobrishov, Keserovic, Spankov, Christiansen, Brandt and Greiling. That is your top 10. Und jetzt geht's gleich los. Wir sind wieder auf grün. Und direkt nach die grüne Flagge ist der Milan Rossi ganz hart auf die Attacke in Richtung Möhring am Spitze. Aber nach Spitzkehrer geht es weiter gut. Möhring bleibt am Spitze des Felds. Vorne von Rossi. Nies, Dümmer auf Platz 4. Bobrishov 5. in diesem Moment auf den 320. So Henry Möhring, good restart from him, but Milan Rossi gave him a lot of pressure from behind as they go now into Mudkurve before the Schumacher chicane. Carlos Nies has got pressure. Julian Dümmer looking for an opportunity to get past the 222 at a Fahrerlagerkurve and has got the slipstream. So Carlos Nies has got to be very, very mindful because at a split second's notice, Dümmer could go for the inside, but Nies holds the racing line. Dümmer follows in the wheel tracks. Rossi trying to put the brightness on Henry Möhring, but that's going to be easier said than done. And Möhring parks it on the inside line at Leichhardt-Kurve at turn 4. Aber den Vorteil von Platz 1 bis zum Platz 4. Nach 5 Runden ist ungefähr 6/10 eine Sekunde zwischen Möhring, Rossi, Nies und Dümmer auf Platz 4. Dann am hinten ist der Keserovic, Platz 5. Bobrishov jetzt Platz 6. Aber Moment, kleines Fehler von der Henry Möhring. Jetzt ist der Rossi über Startungsziel gekommen am Spitzer. Jetzt Attacke von Dümmer gegen Nies in Spitzkehrer. Und leider für die 226 von ADAC Motorsport hat das leider nicht passiert. Aber Nies ganz kurz hinter der Heckspoiler von der 244. But a moment there for Henry Möhring coming out of paddock corner, the final turn heading onto the start-finish stretch, and it dropped him behind Rossi, Nies and Dümmer. So Henry Möhring has got to start fighting back. But Milan Rossi is the closest competitor to Henry Möhring in the championship standings in this superheat. And it could go down to 2 battling for the title at the season finale in Wackersdorf in late September from the 25th to the 27th of that month in Bavaria. But again, plenty of trains of carts coming through the circuit, and a moment for Rossi. Oh dear, he's not, so it's not just Möhring that's had a drama. It was coming through on the run towards turn 8 at Tripskurve, and here comes Dümmer. To the inside he goes, and Julian Dümmer ist jetzt am Spitze des Felds. Was für eine Überraschung. Der Junge von Deutschland, der 226, ist vorne von Henry Möhring, und jetzt von allen Seiten, außerseits geht der 206 in Das war der Edin Kesselhovic, außerseits von Henry Möhring auf Kurve 2. Aber bleibt der Dummer am Spitze. Great racing by these drivers. Kesselhovic trying to go round the outside of Möhring through at turn 2. Dummer holds on strongly for the race lead, and he's got Möhring right on his back bumper. Up the hill they go. It's going to be 4 to go next time by. And Henry Möhring now has got one obstacle in his way, and that is Julian Dummer. But Dummer will put on a big defence if he gets the opportunity to do so, and he's doing that right now. 4 to go. Dummer leads by just under a tenth and a half. Möhring switching to the outside, maybe to try for the crisscross here into turn 2. That's opening the door for Carlos Nies. Nies can't take advantage of it, and there's a big off in the background. Someone kicks up the dirt. And Nies, is he going to dive through? He did at Leichhardt Curve at turn 4. Nies through for second. Möhring demoted to third. And he's got Milan Rossi, well, he's got Kesselhovic and Rossi right behind him. And right at the back of that train is the 219, Gustav Christensen. Up from 9th, now runs 6th. Now, this is going to be an absolutely titanic battle at the front end of the field. And if second backward start fighting, Dummer is going to get the opportunity here to pull away into the distance. 3 to go. Lap 10 completed. 3/10 cover the top 3 into Spitzkehrer here at turn 2. And again, 4th and 5th were wheel to wheel coming out of corner 2, and that was Kesselhovic and Rossi. And here goes Carlos Nies, sees the window of opportunity, gets through on Julian Dummer. Dummer now goes down to 4th behind Nies, Möhring and Kesselhovic. Und jetzt kommt eine lange Linie von viele Menge Karts und ein Versuch in Mutkurve von Richtung Möhring gegen Nies. Aber das passiert nicht. Nochmal 200 bis zum schwarz-weiß karierte Flagge. Und jetzt ist der Nies am Spitze, vorne von Möhring. Kesselhovic auf Platz 3. Und nochmal wieder Angriff von Richtung Dummer gegen Kesselhovic für Platz 3. But now Carlos Nies. Oh, and he goes wide, and Nies is off. Nies is off the track, and Dummer is back in the lead. Möhring's made a mistake, and Julian Dummer has taken complete advantage of the situation, and there is Henry Möhring. He's right in front of Maxim Bobrishov. What can you say about this superheat for OKN Junior? I did say this morning anything could happen, and here in this superheat, it most definitely has. Aber jetzt, letzter 100 läuft am Spitze. Jetzt ist der Julian Dummer, der 226, mit einem Vorteil über Edin Kesselhovic. Über 3/10 eine Sekunde auf Platz 3. Milan Rossi. Gustav Christensen jetzt Vierter, vorne von Henry Möhring auf Platz 5. Through into Leichhardt Curve for the final time. And it is all kicking off, and someone's been spat out and exited off of Leichhardt Curve. So we'll have yellow flags out at turn 4. But how's about this? Who could have predicted the outcome of this superheat? Because Henry Möhring's made mistakes. Milan Rossi, Edin Kesselhovic, and Julian Dummer has just been denied at the last gasp. That was Kesselhovic going through at Mutkurve. It is going to be a race winner. It is not going to be Henry Möhring. It's Edin Kesselhovic. Whoa, hold the phone. He gets through on Julian Dummer at Mutkurve. Dummer, credit to the 226 from ADAC Motorsport, takes second ahead of Milan Rossi, rounding out the top 3. They were covered by 3/10 at the end of that race, but Edin Kesselhovic from Lanari Racing Team stole it at the death through Mutkurve. Rounding out the order, Maxim Bobrishov P4, Gustav Christensen 5th, Henry Möhring 6th, ahead of Sebastian Brandt, Elin Spangtoft, Jonas Bundis, Matteo Mason from 19th finishes P10. And it's been Schumacher, Milos Beginski, Emilio Olas, Luca Taffelmeier, Pierre Wolf, Patrick Ray-Reinert, Nick Ried, Bruno Greiling, Carlos Nies, all the way down in 19th ahead of Jonathan Meyer, who started at the back end of the field. Ruben Moritz, 21st, Leonard Uch, Andre Udrescu finishing a lap down. Paul Bernhard retired on lap 6, Alex Heuser, Stavros Sotos Francia, Amelie Hoivers and Peter Mikes, unfortunately, were out very early. And Christian Rasmussen, a non-starter on that. But ich muss mal sagen, grüezi, Mark Gestenkorn. Good morning, Mark. Well, firstly, I have to say you've had a very, very busy weekend in the office at KZ2 Cup. But how's things been for you this weekend?
Well, I mean, qualifying and practice was going great. We were P1 en route. Unfortunately, the wheel slower than Ellen. But now, well, the first heat was a bit of a shame. We had a non-stop penalty, 5 seconds. We were dropped into P8. But then the second heat was going great. We were finishing P1. Last heat, we were also finishing P2, right at the back of Ollie. Now in the Super Heat, we started P3. We have big hopes. The warm-up was P1. And we think we're going to do great.
I think really what we need to talk about is the fact that you're always on a knife edge here at Kerpen. You know, 1,107 meters. We've got an onboard, which I'd like for you to very shortly take us through. But from a KZ2 driver, you know, 6-speed gearbox, 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in around about 2 seconds, which is a hell of a lot quicker than, let's say, a Porsche 911, for instance. And you're pushing like, what, 140, 150 Ks when you're going down into turn 2 at Spitzkauer, for example?
Actually, the top speed is around 147, I think. And,
okay.
Yesterday, with some slipstream, we're going up to 147. But, I mean, the braking is quite heavy there. I mean, we could look at the onboard and we'll see it, I think.
Yeah, which we will get very shortly for the people watching the ADAC YouTube channel. So through into turn 1, and then from here, you know, you're going down the gearbox. It's very tight here through turn 2, but then you've really got to be on your wits about going through 3 and then into Leichhardt Curve at turn 4.
Yeah, Leichhardt Curve is just like 2 gears down. You're keeping the line very tight so that no one can really overtake you. You don't lose any time because down into this corner you're just going flat out. You need to stay in 3rd gear, into trips, one gear down again. Then you just into mid curve. It's a very technical corner actually, I think. You're going 1 gear down again over the curb just to keep the momentum and everything. Then it's just flat out into the last corner, into paddock corner. Then you're not really trying to keep it that tight because you need to, well, take the speed down at the first corner again. You're gonna have to think about actually the exit of the last corner is more important than the entry because you're just trying to keep the momentum, trying to keep the speed so that you can actually attack into the first corner, especially in the races. That's quite heavy, I think.
Mm. I mean, also, let's talk about how things are looking in the championship standings. I mean, you and Olive Stedler were coming into this round 4, 8 points apart coming into this weekend. I think, you know, KZ2 Cup has always been very, very competitive. I mean, we saw Jaden Teen take the title last year in this division. 48 drivers coming here to Kerpen. I mean, it's been a bit mad this weekend for you all, hasn't it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, also with the penalties, and everyone is just like, everyone has the same speed. We're not really that's not much difference, actually. Everyone's just at the same pace, and the races are quite tight, actually. No one's really having a big advantage in any of the races, right? I mean, you spoke about it yesterday. We had 4 different winners, I think, and 6 different heats.
Yeah.
So, just everything is so tight, and you're not allowed to do any mistakes.
I think one of the biggest people we have to consider here at Kerpen is Manuel Castel in 406. A second, 2 race wins. It's really sort of opened things up into the penultimate round of the championship, but I think at the moment, I would understand from your perspective, Oliver's perspective, you're concentrating on the here and now, and when you get to Wackersdorf, that's when you have to have that full laser style focus. But here it's a case of put your foot down, you know, hit those apexes, hit those braking markers, and especially when, you know, your shoulder. I mean, if people say to me, KZ2 is not difficult, I'll say, you try getting your shoulder ripped out of its socket when you're having to go up and down the gearbox. You're pulling towards you, so you're actually pulling your arm back, and then you're having to push down to shift down the gears. It's not that easy because I'm sure that you guys must have ice packs on standby in case you accidentally overextend a rotator cuff or something like that.
Actually, quite a fun fact. I had a deal with my dad that if I win a race or get a pole position award, he will try to also drive a shifter in September or October somewhere. And I hope he's surprised at what you actually need to do to be fast and everything. I mean, he understands it, but he doesn't really understand it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Mark, thank you so much for your time, buddy. Very, very best of luck for KZ2 Cup. 464, Mark Gestenkorn from Switzerland. viel Erfolg dieses Wochenende für der Pilot von Mach 1 Motorsport. Thank you very much to Mark for taking the time to come up here to the commentary box, and we got a really good understanding of an on-ball there from this 1,107-meter circuit, but we are about to hit the halfway point of the Superheats as OKN is up next. So, jetzt von OKN Junior gehen wir nach OKN und hier ist die Startaufstellung bei dem Superheat. Auf der Pole Position startet der Ben Götz, Startnummer 117, vorne von Jakub Kamenik für die Meisterschaftswertung. Len Abbas und Niklas Simic auf Reihe Nummer 2, vorne von Nils Eversdobler, Marius Conseil auf Platz 6. Konstantin Papst und Nikita Genser auf Reihe 4, vorne von Maxim Becker und Tom Wickhoff. Rick Nadine und Jan Schwarze auf Reihe Nummer 6, vorne von Henry Melchior und der Startnummer 106, Maximilian Engelstädter. Auf Platz 15 startet Lena Frey, dann Linus Koch, Adrien Lorenz, Emilio Berndt, Ben Fritz, Charlotte Tille, Julius Berthold, Samuel Velea, Ramona Rummel, Nils Tröger, Johannes Müssotter, Lino Hönecker, Conor McCoylin und aus Spanien der Startnummer 184, Sebastian Berger-Morel. So 16 laps of the OKN Superheat await us as the red lights will be on the starting gantry at the circuit here in Kerpen. After this race we will be halfway through the Superheats portion of race day number 2 in this part of Western Germany. And Jakub Kamenik has a 70-point advantage coming into this Superheat ahead of Ben Götz. Konstantin Papst for the 15 back in P3. So 70 points is the advantage. Kamenik needs that to be 101 or more by the end of the final. And that is it, job done, and can go into Wackersdorf with no pressure. Und jetzt ist leider dieser Start nicht auf, freigegeben. The full starts just keep on coming in, but it is down to the front row of the grid that need to dictate the pace, and it's down to Ben Götz and Jakub Kamenik that need to be literally wheels aligned across from each other coming out of the paddock corner at the final turn. Once again, it is the calm before the storm. 16 laps for this Superheat. Their final a little bit later on will be 20 laps of the circuit. And there is ADAC Motorsports Ben Götz on the 117 entry. Kamenik will want to get a maximum haul of points and maybe put himself at the sharp end of the field for the final. The final normally will be a bigger contingent of the points. It will be double what you get in the ranking after heats and the ranking after superheats. So Jakub Kamenik lines up alongside Ben Götz coming out of Mutkurve, heading into the Schumacher chicane. Jetzt nochmal ein zweites Versuch bei dem Start freizugeben. Und wir sind grün. Los geht's bis zum Spitzkehrer für den erste Runde von 16. Und außerseits geht jemand und jemand geht geradeaus am Spitzkehrer. Außerseits am Kurve 2, aber der Ben Götz bleibt am Spitze des Felds. Dann ist der Len Abbas am Platz 2 und jetzt ein Unfall zwischen ein paar Piloten. Ich habe schon bemerkt, vielleicht das 148 Ben Fritz. Auf Platz 19 gestartet war einer. Und ja, leider war es der Marius Bonconseil, der 127 auf Platz 5 gestartet. Hat leider am Spitzkehrer geradeaus gegangen. Aber nach der ersten Runde, Ben Götz am Spitze, vorne von Len Abbas, Jakub Kamenik auf Platz 3. Und dann gibt es der Konstantin Papst neben der tschechische Pilot für den Zweikampf für Platz 3 nach Spitzkehrer. So, between the two teammates from TV Racing Team, Kamenik and Papst were briefly alongside each other going through into turn number 3. But at the moment, it is Ben Götz that leads the way through into the Schumacher chicane. Len Abbas from Nies Racing in the 161, who lives only 50 kilometers away from this track, about half an hour away. is very much on his coattails at the minute. Aber das Vorteil zwischen Abbas und Kamenik nach 2 Runden ist jetzt in Linie von 1,2 Sekunden zwischen die beiden. Und da sind den 131 und 141 Lias Erbersdobler und seine Teamkollege von der Motorsport, Nikita Genser. Der hat in vorgängigen Jahren deutsche und belgische nationale Meisterschaft gewonnen. Schnellste Runde seit jetzt in die Tasche für den Pilot auf Platz 2, Delan Abbas, 44,655. Und den Vorteil zwischen der Götz und der Abbas jetzt bleibt in die Nähe von 0,175 Sekunden. So nearly 1 3/4 tenths of a second separating the two leaders as they go up towards Mutkurva. Then Abbas might get a good run through the Schumacher chicane and then into Paddock Corner. He's right on the rear bumper of Ben Goetz out of the final corner. Lap 4 out of 16 completed. Len Abbas might get a good slipstream, but at the moment he is waiting. There is no need for that driver to panic. Aber jetzt schnellste Runde seit dieses Rennen in die Tasche für die 155. Jetzt Maxim Becker, 44,389. Der Becker jetzt auf Platz 9 vorne von Tom Wickop. Zeit zwischen die beiden ist ungefähr 3,3 eine Sekunde. So with with 5 laps completed, Ben Goetz, aka Houdini, the nickname I gave to him last year when he was pulling rabbits out of a magician's hat whilst driving a kart, is leading. Len Abbas is just under 0.14 of a second behind, and Abbas was fractionally slower last time around, but still keeping Ben Goetz very, very honest. Kamenik is trying to close that gap, and it's now around about 1 second between P2 and P3. Da gibt es der 131 Lias Erbersdobler vorne von Niklas Simic. So, Positionwechsel für Platz 5. Und jetzt die schnellste Runde seit dieses Rennens ist bei Adrien Lorenz. Der Startnummer 185, 44,119. Jetzt der Lennart Frey, 44,063. Für der Pilot von ADAC Motorsport auf Startnummer 136. Jetzt auf Platz 13. Und nochmal kann man sehen, dass ein paar Überholmanövers hat geklappt in Kurve Nummer 4 bei Leikart-Kurve hier in Kerpen. Aber an Spitze bleibt der Ben Goetz vorne von Len Abbas auf Platz 2. Kamenik, 3., 4. Papst, 5. jetzt Erbersdobler. But we've got to be very careful here because at one particular point someone's going to become the leader of the conga line. But with this circuit being a true driver's track, minimal overtaking opportunities, there's still going to be drivers that are going to try and make that move. And one driver does make the move up the inside of Leikart Kurve, and he's not the only one to do so. Meantime, there is Emilio Bern, who's now up 7 places from 18th on the grid, now runs 11th. And he's battling away with the likes of Maximilian Engelstedter, who's just passed in the 106. Semi Valea in the 107 14th. Adrien Lorenz, a further just under 2 tenths back in the 185. Aber jetzt kommt die schnellste Runde seit des Rennens von der Jakub Kamenik. 44,006 bei der Führende in die Meisterschaftswertung, der 114. Aber leider gibt es Pech in dieses Rennen für Marius Bonconceau, Ben Fritz und Nils Kröger. Leider für alle 3 Piloten ist das Rennen vorbei. Und auch für den Startnummer 115 Julius Berthold Leider für ihn ist auch das Rennen vorbei. Nach 6 Runden. Aber nach 9 Runden, es gibt 7 bis zum schwarz-weiß karierte Flagge und den Vorteil zwischen der Ben Götz am Spitze und der Lynn Abbas auf Platz 2. Jetzt ist über halbe Sekunde zwischen die beiden. Nochmal eine schnellste Runde seit bei der Pilot auf Platz 3. Der Startnummer 114, Jakub Kamenik. So Kamenik really upping the ante, and he's just put in a 43.958, new fastest lap of the race from the driver from the Czech Republic. And starting to catch Len Abbas as they're making their way through the Schumacher chicane. Now through paddock corner. Ben Götz is just comfortably getting on with the job at hand and is running pretty consistent. Last time round, 44.05, then a 44.02 and a 44.04. So Ben Götz's consistent race pace is helping him out. But Jakub Kamenik, again, another new fastest lap of the race. And that was a 43.790 by the 114. So Kamenik really starting to put the pressure onto the shoulders of Len Abbas in P2 when he's racing outfit. So, jetzt 5 Runden bis zum schwarz-weiß karierte Flagge und der Ben Götz bleibt nach jetzt noch mal eine Runde, aber Überholmanöver, ich denke, das war der Emilio Bernd gegen Maxim Becker, und das hat passiert. Bernd jetzt auf Platz 7 und ein sehr, sehr schönes Überholmanöver innerseits an Kurve 2, Spitzkehrer zwischen der Bernd und der Becker. So, Positionwechsel für Platz 7. So nice little move there. Textbook from Emilio Bernd through on Maxim Becker. Emilio Bernd is now up 11 places at the minute and is hungry for more opportunities. But Ben Götz now starts to stretch the lead again in front of Len Abbas. And that is now 0.64 of a second. Jakub Kamenik is now 2/10 behind the 161 in front of him. Konstantin Papst jetzt auf Platz 4. Jetzt an den Start des Rennens auf Platz 7 gestartet. Nikita Genser hat auf Platz 8 gestartet, jetzt ist er 6. So Nikita Genser, the driver that has won titles in Germany and also in the Benelux region. He's also someone that's starting to make some moves. Maxim Becker now down to 9th behind Tom Vikop, who's got through. Und gibt es auch jetzt neue schnellste Runde seit dieses Rennen bei Semir Velea. 43,787 und Startnummer 107 von der Lanari Racing Team. Es gibt noch mal 2 Runden, Runde Nummer 11 und 13 bis zum Ende dieses Rennens bei schwarz-weiß karierter Flagge. So after this, 2 laps to go. Ben Götz really starting to pull a gap over Len Abbas. Jakub Kamenik is trying to do what he can to close that gap and maybe get a second place, but it might be too little too late. Just a couple of seconds time, we'll be getting underway with the final lap of the OKN Superheat. Durch Fahrerlagerkurve kommt der Pilot von ADAC Motorsport, Ben Götz. Überstartungsziel, letzte Runde läuft. Ben Götz now brings us onto the final lap of the race with an advantage nearly 9/10 of a second to the good in his favour, ahead of Len Abbas, who's still got Jakub Kamenik behind him, and Kamenik doing everything he can. But bearing in mind, one of his nearest competitors, Konstantin Papst, sitting in P4 at the minute. Evers Dobler, Bernd, Genser, Vikop, Simic and Becker. That is the last few drivers in the top 10. Aber für den letzten Mal hier in den OKN Superheat durch Schumacher-Schikane kommt der Ben Götz von ADAC Motorsport und er ist der Rennsieger bei Superheat in OKN hier in Kerpen. So Ben Götz takes the win ahead of Len Abbas and Jakub Kamenik, the championship leader, rounding out the top 3. Konstantin Pabst and Niazebes Dobler came across the line to finish 4th and 5th respectively. Emilio Bount, 18th on the grid, finishes P6 ahead of Nikita Ganser, Tom Vikop, Niklas Simic and Maxim Becker rounding out the top 10. After that, Leonard Frey, Semi Valea, Jan Schwarzer, Adrian Lorenz and Maximilian Engelstetter round out the top 15 with Charlotte Tiller, Rick Nadine, Henry Melchior, Lionel Huneker, Sebastian Verga-Morel, Linus Koch, Johannes Musotter, Conor McCoylin and Ramona Rummel rounds out the finishers. Unfortunately, Julius Berthold out on lap number 6 with Marius Bonconce, Ben Fritz and Niels Tröger out on the opening lap. That's the halfway point hit for the Superheats, courtesy of OKN. Next up, we go to the top tier category of the Deutsche Kart-Meisterschaft. It's time very soon for the Superheat for KZ2.
Machine ready to go, hands locked tight on the wheel. I can taste that rubber peel. Do it like that, I hold my breath. One blink more, then go for that. Slam that pedal, let it bite. I live.
So, from Direct Drive, we go to shifter kart action as it is time for our 4th of 6 Superheats, and it is KZ2. And what an interesting day we had yesterday. 2 different winners from the 2 respective qualifying heats as the 5-minute board goes out. Winner of KZ2 qualifying heat 1, it was the 42 of Germany's Maximilian Schleimer that took the race win. Heat 2, Senna van Valstein from the Netherlands for CS competition in the number 44, then managed to have a little bit of redemption in yesterday's final heat. But more to the point, it does mean that there is an update coming very soon to how the standings look, because Emilian Denner, man who picked up another European title this year, is the man that was leading the way coming into this part of the championship season with 3 rounds already completed. First one at Mülsen in Saxony, then we headed across the German-Czech border to Kart Arena Cheb, and then last time out to Kartbahn Ampfing. This is the 4th round of the championship season before we head to Pro Kart Raceland Circuit in Wackersdorf in Bavaria, September the 25th to the 27th. So just under a minute to go before the drivers get push started off of the starting grid, and we'll be set and ready for 19 laps of the circuit for the KZ2 drivers, and in their final later on it will be 28 laps. So here is the starting order for your KZ2 Superheat. 19 laps of the 1.107 kilometer circuit here in Kerpen. Maximilian Schleimer and Daniel Stell make it an all-German front row. It's France and the Netherlands on row 2, with Emilian Denner joined by Senna van Walstein. Marek Skrivan and Robert Kinderwarter will be on row number 3, ahead of Tommy van der Sloijs and the number 75 of Arthur Lehoux. Norton Andreessen and Dion van Verven round out the top 10 with Matti Vandenberg, Simon Billman, Matej Broys, Jeffrey Fixer and Kipras Jossa rounding out the 15 strong. So if we heard from Mark Gestenthorn on the onboard lap that we dissected a little bit earlier on the ADAC Motorsports YouTube live stream. So you're going to see these drivers top things out. Emilian Denner now on 2:58. Daniel Stell 2:21. Dion van Verven makes it the top 3, covered by 48 points. Make that 58 though, more than 48 points. It's going to make it 50 when it comes to Marek Skrivan. So that'll be 48 points between first and third. Matej Broys rounding out the top 5 on 197. So this is where these drivers, and we'll see standing starts again in the next couple of races for KZ2 Cup, Superheat A and Superheat B, and that will bring us nicely to the lunch break here at the Erflandring in Kerpen. The front row already in their grid positions. Schleimer and Stell, front and centre. Denner, Van Walstein, Skrivan and Kinderwarter. Van der Sloijs and Lehoux, Andreessen and Van Verven round out your top 10. The last few drivers get set into their respective grid positions. Green flag waves at the back. Drivers instructed to look at the lights, and as the 4 red lights ignite, we are set and ready to go racing. And a good start by Schleimer. Wheel to wheel between him and Stell on the run down into turn 2. For the first time, but a great launch by Senna van Walstein from the Netherlands as someone goes out a little bit wide. And that looks to be, he was trying to catch the back of the number, might have been possibly kart 9 or kart, well, it might have been kart 6, but someone has gone off at turn 3. The field makes its way down towards Tripp's corner at turn 8, as they're now going to come up the hill for the first time. And leading the way, it is going to be, right, I spy with my little eye. Senna van Walstein now leads the way in kart 44. Schleimer, Stell, then it's kart 75, Lehoux, Van Verven. And what has happened to Emilian Denner? Oh, it was Denner, I think, that went off the track. Marek Skrivan and Tommy van der Sloijs have not come through sector 1. So that is going to be the 58 and the 36. Looks like their race has already been done and dusted before part of the pun, because there's a lot of dust as soon as you hit the grass here at Kerpen on the runoff areas. There's a lot of dust that gets punted right up into the air. But it is going to be Senna van Valstein that will lead us through at a paddock corner, and he's got a freight train behind him. Schleimer, Stel, Lehouk, Van Verven, and Emilian Denner. Where is he at the moment? Well, Emilian Denner has come across the line in what is 11th position. So Denner has got a lot of work to do over the next 16.5 laps. Fastest lap of the race, 42.987 by Matej Brois, who's now up from 13th on the grid, runs P6. Van Valstein trying to bridge a gap between himself and now the driver running in second position as Kart Shop Anfing's Daniel Stel has got through on the number 42 of Maximilian Schleimer for that second spot. And Matej Brois has got a real good run. He's trying to look up the inside of Van Verven, who in turn looked up the inside of Lehouk, and Van Verven got through on the Frenchman in the number 75. So Lehouk drops down a position. Van Verven tried to anticipate Matej Brois' attack and went for it over the inside of Arthur Lehouk through at turn 2 and made the move nice and clean into the 54. Field once again makes his way up through Mudcover. Van Valstein continues to lead proceedings as it stands so far. Out of Fahalaga Kurva at Paddock Corner. The last turn across the line they go again. Van Valstein has the lead of just over 0.3 of a second ahead of Daniel Stel. Schleimer, Van Verven, Lehouk, Brois, Andreasen, Billman, Denner now back up into P9. So the Frenchman on the recovery drive and has just put in the fastest tour of the race so far. 42.452 for the number 3. Have the opportunity to get through on Jeffrey Fixer in number 69 for ADAC Motorsports. But Van Valstein just holding on to that race lead to try and get the job done. And the quicker these laps go away, then Van Valstein will be feeling a little bit more comfortable, let's put it that way, ahead of Daniel Stel. Stel is a known quantity. Not now Van Valstein to get away into the distance. And it's easier said than done if you get to the lead to try and pull a gap. But it's always the drivers behind you that could be the more immediate threat. And so the top two have started dropping. Maximilian Schleimer in the number 42 car a little bit further back across the line. And that is another lap in the books. Lap 6 completed. Daniel Stel, new fastest lap of the race, 42.254 for the number 5 car, currently sitting in second place. Under the top 7, Matej Brois, they're covered by just over 1.7 seconds after the opening 6 laps. 13 to go, including this one. And Van Valstein trying to still break that gap over Daniel Stel. That's not quite working at the moment. The gap was just over 0.3 of a second last time around. So out of the 15 starters, we have 13 still continuing their way around the circuit. Some drivers getting a little bit close to the back bumpers of others. Coming through out of Mudcover. But in some respects, some drivers I know for a fact would want to be leading this race rather than being stuck behind somebody. There's Matej Brois trying to get through on Arthur Lehouk. That's for P5 on the road. Brois up 7. Van Verven up 6, now up to 4th. Lehouk up 3, so he runs P5 having started P8. Simon Billman. And from Sweden, who's made up 4 places, now runs in the top 8. And still the gap between them all. Van Waalstein now has a lead of nearly 2.5 tenths of a second over Daniel Stell. Schleimer a further 1 second back in P3. And Daniel Stell now sets the fastest lap time of the race of 42.137. In comparison with Senna Van Waalstein, his last time was a 42.18. Average speed of nearly 95 kilometres now on that tour by Daniel Stell. So that does mean he is not hanging around. He's not going to want to sit behind that bumper of the Sodi kart of Senna Van Waalstein for that much longer. The recovery drive from Emilien Denner continues. He's only a tenth behind Simon Billman. And that change of position could happen momentarily when the Frenchman decides to pull the trigger at that point. So very shortly we'll have 8 laps to go, and Senna Van Waalstein continues to lead the way. Head of Stell. A little bit further back is Maximilian Schleimer. Van Verven now up into P4 ahead of Lehouk. Well, Arthur Lehouk has just lost a place to Matej Broys from the Czech Republic, who's now up a further spot. Matej Broys has already made up 8 places and is now P5. So it's a good work there for the number 6 from Formula K SRP. And the gap has expanded once again. We are past half-time. We have 7 to go. Van Waalstein continues to lead. He's just over 0.52 of a second ahead of Daniel Stell. Schleimer still holding on to 3rd place, but he's going to have the likes of Dion van Verven. Matej Broys, Arthur Lehouk, and I think also Norton Andresen from Sweden. But a hive of activity here at KZ2. But Van Waalstein just controlling the pace at this moment. That's all he needs to do. There's a bump over the curbing going through to the Schumacher chicane, and it also shows confidence. If you've been in a kart for quite a long time, it's like running a bike, you'll never forget. And that could be very much a case in point with his drivers, but Van Waalstein still has the fastest lap of the race of 41.989. I'm just waiting to see if there's someone where we make my down and make sure they get their elbows out a little bit. Four laps to go, and Van Waalstein now has expanded the gap to nearly 7/10 of a second over Daniel Stell. Maximilian Schleimer completes the top 3. With Van Verven, Broys, Lehouk, Andresen. We've got a few others still trying to make some headway whilst the sun continues to shine here on Sunday morning. Senna van Velstein, I'd say, is doing a really, really good job. And his results speak for themselves. So after this, just 2.2 kilometers remaining. I think maybe if there's going to be 2 more laps to go of the circuit, and it is in the first semi-final, it is going to be Tommy van der Stoijs that but as this race comes to its inevitable conclusion, we'll have 2 more to go after this. But in the meantime, well, look at the advantage that the 42 car is continuing to give us the action we need to see in pictures and, well, sound and vision. Last lap underway, and Senna van Velstein from the Netherlands is once again just pulling that gap. It was 1.238 seconds. Just a handful of corners to go. We'll have another EU race winner. But out of the final corner, it is going to be nearly, well, it's pretty much a fait accompli. The Sony Kart of CS competition, Senna van Velstein wins the race after 19 laps. Daniel Stell, P2, Maximilian Schleimer, P3, Dion van Verven, Matej Proijs, Arthur Lehoek, Norton Andreasen, Emilian Denner finishes all the way down in 8th, followed by Robert Kindervater and Simon Billman in the number 9 Solgat Motorsport entry, running at the top 10. Jeffrey Fixer, Matty Vandenbroek and Kiprasius round out the grid. That is it for KZ2 at the moment. But there you see the results. So Van Velstein winning by just over 1.3 seconds from Schleimer. Well, from Stell and Schleimer running at the top 3, covered by just under 4.3 seconds. Van Verven 4th. Proijs, Lehoek, Andreasen, Denner, Kinderwater and Billman rounding out the top 10. But a difficult start to the second race day of the weekend for Malik Scrivan for the TB Kart Racing team. And Tommy van der Stoijs with MP Kart Racing. And that is, as they say, that's with regards to the superheat. And that is 4 down so far today. There's 2 to go. gleich geht's los mit unserem ersten Superheat für KZ2 Cup. Hier ist die Startaufstellung für Superheat A. Manuel Castells startet auf Pole Position und auf der linken Seite der ersten Reihe startet Eric Bess. Auf Reihe 2 Mark Gestenkorn und Dirk van Siftout. Dann folgt Luca Prima und Loris Sachse. Dann Jelte Bommer, Dominik Reuters, Kevin Wagner und auf Platz 10 startet der 469 Julian Bull. Dann auf Reihe 6 startet Marcel Ernst und Semil Bayati. Dann folgt Louis Esser und Julian van Winden auf Reihe 7. Reihe 8 Timo Elsten, Moreno Lemmer. Und dann auf Reihe 9 Moischenk und Maximilian Predarovic. Der 484 auf Platz 19 Max Hesel. Auf Platz 20 startet Dedine. Startnummer 410 Christopher Sachse. Dann folgt Vesper Pleumet, Karl Liesmer und Eric Müller. Und ich denke, dass nochmal wieder in dieser Veranstaltung hier bei DKM Saison 2026 Giovanni Witteveen sollte am 24. Platz gestartet, aber ich denke, dass Witteveen werde nicht dieses Rennen starten. So, das war's für die Startaufstellung. Und wir haben nochmal viele Piloten, aber jetzt den Vorteil zwischen Oliver Stettler und Mark Gestenkorn am Führenden in die Meisterschaft. Jetzt ist der Vorteil verlängert von 8 bis zu 15 Punkte. Dann der Manuel Kestel auf Platz 3, vorne von Pavel Wimmer und Emanuel May für den Top 5 in die Meisterschaftswertung für KZ2 Cup. So the front row, Manuel Kestel and Eric Vest. We did wonderful to have a nice catch up with Switzerland's Mark Gestenkorn, who starts on the inside of row 2, and he's got the fast starting Dutchman in the form of Dirk van Siftout, who's been running in the UKS, the part of the Chrono Karting Dutch National Championship in this division. But we will have quite a few drivers getting set and ready. So, wir warten auf die grüne Flagge von hinten. Da ist es. Jetzt müssen alle Piloten auf die Lichter blicken. Und gleich geht's los. Guten Start. Reifen zu Reifen zwischen Wess und Kastel. Von den Start und außerseits geht der Wess. Und jetzt ist er am vorbei an der Manuel Kastel beim Spitzkehrer außerseits. Well, all I can say, Eric Vest just did the old Slim Shady on Manuel Kastel through turn 2. As everyone trying to make their way through the second sector of the circuit, heading towards Trips Corner. And then we'll get into sector 3 on the approach into Mudkurve. Aber was für ein Start bei Eric Vest, aber Pech für jemand beim Tripskurve. Aber den Vorteil, dass der Eric Vest nach den ersten 100 wird sehr, sehr lang sozusagen. Und auf Platz 2 jetzt der Däner von MP Kart Racing Team, Loris Sachse von Platz 6, jetzt Platz 2, Kastel jetzt auf Platz 5 hinter der Dirk van Siftout und der Dominik Reuters, der 489. But Eric Vest has just launched it and has got a 7/10 of a second advantage. Everyone did start. Giovanni Witteveen, who started stone dead last, is now up into 18th position. So all 24 started the race. And it looks like Eric Vest is trying to scarper away into the distance. Sachse holding on to P2. Van Siftout P3. Dan Reuters auf der Prager. Und der Kastel auf den Sodi. Platz 5, der 4 und 5 respektiv. Und nach dem den ersten 200 von 18 hat den Eric Vest seinen Vorteil, knapp in die Idee von 19, eine Sekunde, über der Diener, Startnummer 456, Loris Sachse. Und jetzt hat der Vest nochmal wieder den schnellsten Rundezeit dieses Rennens in der Tasche. 43,632. Und ich denke, dass zwischen Platz 2 und Platz 6, wo der Mark Gestenkorn steht, Das ist wirklich eng. 7 Zehntel, 1 Sekunde zwischen 5 Piloten und dann Angriff von Kastel gegen Reuters. Dann gibt ein Dreher in Kurve 3. Und vielleicht kann dann dieser Pilot jetzt starten. Leider war das Pech. Manuel Kastel, der 406. Pech für der Fahrer, der hat auf dem Pole Position gestartet. So Manuel Kastel has just found trouble. Well, he wasn't looking for it, but it found him. And I think it might have been a slight touch between him and Mark Gestenkorn. And Gestenkorn across the line is now down to 8th. Nochmal wieder Angriff nach Spitzkehrer, inklusive mit der Kevin Wagner auf den 444, auf Platz 6. So Kevin Wagner definitely getting his elbows out a little bit here. But Gestenkorn and Kastel had a little slight coming together, coming out of turn 3, and Kastel ended up on the, received the wrong end of the stick being received, let's say. But off and into the barriers. Direkt ins Mauer beim Kiesbett, beim Mutkurve. Direkt unter den Mauer. Oh meine Güte. Und das war der Marcel Ernst. Hui. Aber Gott sei Dank, dass der Marcel Ernst ist alles okay, steht auf die Füße. Das ist alles im Motorsport. Wenn das richtig gut sieht, dass jemand steigt aus dem Kart ohne Verletzung an beide Füße, wir sind auf einem guten Weg, wenn das passiert. So, when someone like Marcel Ernst straight off into the barriers, the kart gets underneath it, off of Mutkurve, straight on, see him on his own 2 feet, absolutely a good thing to see. What you don't want to see is, we've got someone going sideways, and that was, that was Mark Gestenkorn. Gestenkorn sideways. I think he might have just tripped himself up a little bit. And that means that Oliver Stedler will be watching this with a lot of things to think about. So, Maurice Schenk we've lost. Vesper Ploymet we've lost. Marcel Ernst we've lost. Manuel Kastel is still there in terms of being able to potentially score points. But it is Dominic Reuters who is closing in on Eric Vest for the race lead, and they've just come across the line. Reuters with the new fastest lap of the race. Schnellste Hundertzeit des Rennens in die Tasche für der 489. Dominic Reuters, der jetzt ist vorbei am der Eric Vest. Und jetzt ist der Reuters am Spitze des Felds auf dem Prager Chassis. Nach 7 Runden von 18 insgesamt hier den ersten Superheat bei KZ2 Cup. Viele Drama, viele Action und das ist Motorsport pur. Aber nach 8 Runden den Vorteil zwischen Dominic Reuters, der 489, und der Eric Vest auf der 414 ist jetzt 4,5 Zehntel, 1 Sekunde Vorteil in Richtung Reuters. Sachse auf Platz 3, dann Sift auf 4., Bohmer 5., Kevin Wagner auf Platz 6, vorne von der Louis Esser, Semil Bayazzi auf Platz 8, vorne von Milan van Winden und der 464 aus der Schweiz, Mark Gestenkorn. So we've had drama, we have had incidents, we have had drivers going off, and well, that's a typical day in the office in KZ2 Cup. But nevertheless, this is why it is one of the most competitive championships, or competitive classes. As to the inside, Kevin Wagner gets through on Jelte Bohmer. That's the change for P5. So the German gets through on the Dutch driver. At Spitzkehrer at turn 2. So the 444 von TB Racing Team, der Kevin Wagner, ist vorbeigegangen. Von Startnummer 438 aus Holland, der Jelte Bohmer. So, Positionwechsel für Platz 5. Aber der Reuters geht immer Vollgas am Steuer. Der Startnummer 489. Jetzt Vorteil über Eric West. Start ist jetzt am 18. eine Sekunde stattfinden. Vorne von Lawrence Sachse auf Platz 3. So Reuters with an 8/10 of a second advantage over Eric West. Lawrence Sachse continues to hold on to P3. Aber leider gibt es auch Pech bei der Startnummer 492. Leider am Runde Nummer 7 ist es alles vorbei in dieser Superheat für den Morris Schenk. Und nach dem Final Ranking auf der Superheats wird den Top 36 Piloten von dieser Klasse direkt ins Finale gehen. So, looks like Mark Gestenkorn is on a bit of a recovery drive, and I think he's just got past Semil Bayati in the 4.76. So the Swiss driver now up into 8th position. After this, we'll have 6 laps to go. But Dominic Reuters is absolutely fine at the minute. He's just done another fastest lap of the race with a 42.383. Nach 12 Runden Vorteil über Eric West. Jetzt steht am 1,3 Sekunden. Aber was für ein Superheat für der 489. Er verlängert die Vorteil über seine Konkurrenten mit ein sehr starkes Leistung mit dem Prager Chassis. Und jetzt gibt es einen Dreikampf über Platz 2 zwischen Eric West, Lawrence Sachse und der 477 aus Holland, Dirk van Sifthout. So a three-way scrap over second position. Eric West holding on in the 414 Birillard, and he's losing time to Dominic Reuters. Reuters is absolutely flying and is now nearly 1.6 seconds up the road. And this can only mean that Dominic Reuters, all he's got to do is to finish first. First, you must finish. Wir haben 24 Piloten am Start, jetzt mit ungefähr 4 Runden bis zum schwarz-weiß karierte Flagge. Die Total ist reduziert bis zum 21 Piloten insgesamt in dieses Rennen. Nochmal wieder über Start und Ziel bei Dominic Reuters. 4 Runden bis zum Start, den Ende des Superheats, aber vorbei an der Lawrence Sachse innerseits am Spitzkehr Kurve 2 bei der 477. Dirk van Sifthout. Jetzt ist vorbei an der Diener. So good move by the 477 in the Birillard. The Netherlands, Dirk van Sifthout now P3 in Superheat A. We've got just over 3.3 kilometers to go. Aber hier kommt durch die Schumacher-Schikane Dominic Reuters auf den Startnummer 489 hier in Superheat A bei KZ2 Cup. Vorteil war 1,8 Sekunden, jetzt ganz knapp in die Nähe von 1,9 Sekunden zwischen Platz 1 und 2. Und ich muss mal sagen, das Rückkehr von Manuel Castel, okay, das gibt Pech mit dem Unfall mit dem Kästenkorn in den ersten paar Runden dieses Rennen, aber er hat die schnellste Runde seit in die Tasche. 42,341. Aber jetzt über Startpunktziel. Reuters geht weiter mit Vollgas bis zum Spitzkehr. Mit einem Vorteil über Eric West. Der hat Druck. Das kommt von hinten Richtung Dirk van Sifthout am vorne hin. Aber kann der Holländer an Eric West vorbeigehen? Das könnte passieren in die nächste 1,5 Runden dieses Rennen bei Superheat A. Aber dieses Mal für den Dominic Reuters. Jetzt läuft die letzte Runde. Last lap. Reuters comfortably pulling away in complete control, and it's nearly 2.3 seconds up the road from Eric West, who's got pressure on the shoulders from behind, courtesy of the 477 driver from the Netherlands. Dirk van Siftout, who's looking left, looking right, through into Leichhardt Curve for the final time. Loris Saxer is keeping with them. But what a run it's been. Was für eine Leistung bei Dominik Reuters, der Startnummer 489, hat außerseits Reihe Nummer 4 gestartet. Und diesmal hier am heutigen Samstagmorgen, letzte Kurve und Rennsieger Superheat A. Gratulation, Dominik Reuters. Und nach 18 Runden, er hat bei 3,3 Sekunden dieses Rennen gewonnen. Erik West auf Platz 2 über Start und Ziel, vorne von Dirk van Siftout. Loris Saxe aus Dänemark, Platz 4, vorne von den 444. Kevin Wagner auf Platz 5. Jelte Bomer, Mark Gestenkorn, Louis Esser, Semil Bayati and Milan van Winden round out the top 10. With Giovanni Vitzavin starting from the back of the field, makes up 13 places for finishing 11th. Luca Brima, Maximilian Prederhovic, Max Hazel, Julian Bug round out the top 15. Tim Veels, Juri Molema, Eric Müller, Karl Liesmer, Manuel Castel and Christopher Saxer rounding out the 21 that finished all 18 laps. Retirements from Maurice Schenk on lap 7, Marcel Ernst, lap 5, and Vesper Ploymert, lap 4.
Wir haben hier am Red Bull Ring mit dem DTM-Fahrerlager am Montag begonnen. Haben wir die ersten Striche ins Fahrerlager eingeklebt. Dann kommen nach und nach die verschiedenen Gewerke, wie die Porsche Hospitality oder auch unsere DTM Hospitality, die dann am Dienstagmorgen hier angefangen haben aufzubauen.
Wahnsinnige Atmosphäre, ich bin total happy, das Wochenende hier gewesen zu sein.
Wir haben eine unzählige Vielfalt an Berufen und wir sind natürlich auch total daran interessiert, dass gerade die jungen Leute zu uns kommen. Also ich würde sagen, es ist für jeden was dabei.
Es ist immer ein wahnsinnig schönes Gefühl, wenn man die Leute wieder auf die Straße bekommt. Aber eben auch als Veranstalter vom Motorsport finde ich es wahnsinnig toll. Wir machen das ja auch, weil wir gerne irgendwas mit Motoren machen.
Außerhalb von Deutschland, Österreich und der Schweiz ist die DTM in über 200 Territorien live oder real life zu sehen.
Herzlich willkommen aus dem kompletten Entlauf von German Airways Richtung Nürburgring. Heiße ich Sie auf herzlich willkommen.
Man kommt hier sehr, sehr nah an die Teams, man kann in die Garagen reingucken. Also es ist wirklich alles da und ich glaube, es ist einfach eine super Atmosphäre hier.
Helmet on, chin down low, little machine ready to go. Hands locked tight on the wheel, I can taste that rubber peel. Daylight stare, I hold my breath. One blink more than go for that. Slam that pedal, let it bite. I live for the first turn fight. Clip that curve, don't lose the line. One clean move and I take mine. Side by side, I won't fold. This small track makes me.
The 1 minute board goes out ahead of our last superheat. KZ2 Cup Superheat B shortly about to get underway as we enter towards the business end of this penultimate round of the 2026 Deutsche Kart-Meisterschaft season here at Kerpen in Western Germany. It has been action-packed and drama-filled all the way through from yesterday afternoon. 30-second board goes out. And then we will send the drivers on their way ahead of 18 laps of this 1,107-meter circuit. It has seen many a driver that has made it to the top-tier echelons of modern-day motorsport over the decades within the world of karting. Green flag waves as the drivers are on their way. Und für Superheat B bei KZ2 Cup, hier ist die Startaufstellung für 18 Runden. Auf der Pole startet der Führende in die Meisterschaftswertung, Oliver Stettler. Und neben ihm an erster Reihe startet der 407 von Solgat Motorsport, Emanuel May. Karl Luthard und Yannick Remet, Reihe Nummer 2, vorne von Pavel Wimmer aus Tschetschen und aus Bulgarien Ilyan Jankov. Auf Reihe 4 Nico Bogner und Jaden Göscheken, auf Reihe Nummer 5 Nick Koimers und Jeroen Boss. Dann Oskar Steinbach, Rick Hartmann, Adrien Martins, Svenje Dreher, Quinton van Leuven, Henrikas Kleppikas, Valentin Knödel, Jason Doverstein, Dino Kalkum und auf Platz 20 startet Paulius Paskevicius. Dann Khalil Soda, Nelson Berghaus und auf Platz 23 startet der 491 aus Schweden, Kevin Rosenberg. After this superheat, the 47 drivers will be whittled down to 36, meaning that for 11 drivers in KZ2 Cup, after the lunch break, their race weekend will be at a shortened end. Oliver Stedler leads by 15 points ahead of Mark Gestenkorn. And of course that will change once the superheats are completed. Manuel Castel in P3, Pavel Wimmer rounding out the top 4 in the championship standings as the sunshine beats down from the blue skies up above. Und bei der Startaufstellung, wir warten auf die letzten paar Piloten beim dem Starting Grid. Und wir warten, grüne Flagge von hinten. Und wenn die Lichter geht raus, gleich geht's los. Und absoluter Hammerstart bei der Oliver Stedler von der Pole Position. 3 breit bis zum Kurve 1 im Mittelfeld. Aber da bleibt der Stedler am vorne bis von Spitzkehrer bis zum Kurve Nummer 3. So Stedler got a rocket ship start off the line. As the drivers head their way through Leichhardt Kurve for the first time. So Stedler leads. May, Luthard, Jankov jetzt Vierter, vorne von Remmert und Wimmer. Den Göschken jetzt auf Platz 7, vorne von der Nick Bloimers. Nico Bogner jetzt auf 9. vorne von Jeroen Boss auf der 446. Und nach der ersten Runde kleines Vorteil vor der Oliver Stedler. Der 485 führen die in die Meisterschaftswertung. Und das war 3,3 Zehntel eine Sekunde. Schnellste Runde seit, aber Fehler bei der 422. Karl Luthard, der war Dritter. Jetzt gelbe Flagge an Kurve 2. So vielleicht Pech für jemand hinter des Felds. Aber bleibt der Oliver Stedler stark am vorne. Oliver Stedler holding on to that race lead up the hill through Mutkurva on lap 2 out of 18. And he's starting to pull a gap over Emmanuel May on the Birolart. Third place, I think that is, yes, 4-3-3. Pavel Wimmer now up into third. Karl Luthard jetzt fünfter. Hinter der Pilot aus Bulgarien, der Ilyan Yankov, Startnummer 412. Jetzt ist der Quinton van Leuven jetzt Platz 16, vorne von Svenja Dreher auf Startnummer 453. Aber Pech für den Valentin Knödel auf das Startnummer 466. Und leider ist für den deutschen Pilot das Rennen vorbei. So one driver already we've had to say goodbye to, so to speak, inadvertently through an incident at turn 2. Valentin Knödel in the 466, but Stedler is starting to open up the taps on the Formula K SRP factory team kart underneath him, and he's up the road by nearly 9/10 of a second from Emmanuel May. Oh, someone might have a little bit of a noisier exhaust I might have just picked up in the background. But Stedler, I think he's going to probably break a 1 second lead after lap 4. Aber hinter der Karl Luthard auf Platz 5, ganz kurz hinter seiner Heckspoiler, ist der 416 von Formula K SRP, Jaden Göschingen, und auch der Yannick Remmert ist auch da. Ein Dreikampf über was ist für Platz 5 im Feld. Aber nach 4 Runden Vorteil zwischen Stedler und Emmanuel May. Jetzt ist 1,4 Sekunden. So you could probably say that Oliver Stedler might be on a little bit of cruise control, saving energy, saving tyre performance as well for the final. But there are some cloud cover set to come in to the locality later on this afternoon. But we have bright, brilliant blue skies here on late Sunday morning, just before midday. And Stedler is starting to do exactly what he needs to. He just needs to maintain that lead, and it is expanding all the while. 1.7 seconds. But behind him, this is where all the fireworks might be set off as soon as someone lights the match. Emmanuel May jetzt bleibt Zweiter, vorne von der Pavel Wimmer auf der 433, dann Ilyan Yankov, Karl Luthard, Jaden Göschingen, Yannick Remmert, Jeroen Bos, jetzt Achter, vorne von Nick Leumers und Oskar Steinbach auf Startnummer 423. Jetzt ist in Platz 10. Aber der richtig starke Leistung bei der Oliver Stedler. Und nach 6 Runden von 18 Vorteil zwischen ihm und Emmanuel May. Jetzt steigt bis 2 Sekunden zwischen beiden Piloten. Und auch ein Versuch, ein Angriff von der Yannick Remmert in Richtung vorne ihn bei Jaden Göschingen auf der 416 für den Kampf für Platz 6. So Yannick Remmert trying to put the brightness on Jaden Göschingen in the battle for P6 at the moment. They come up the hill. Remmert has got the very fast Dutchman in the form of experienced driver Jeroen Bos in the 446 from CS competition. But you see how fast these karts accelerate coming out of paddock corner at the final turn. And then it's all the way down the gearbox into Spitzkehr at turn 2. They are flat on the throttle all the way down, extending that throttle cable as far as they dare. Nelson Berghaus, unfortunately, has retired on lap 6 in the 459. So there's Valentin Knödel out on lap 2. Nelson Berghaus out on lap 6. Aber ich muss mal richtig sagen, was für eine Leistung, eine starke Leistung bei der Pilot an Spitze des Felds. Der ist auch der Führende in die Meisterschaftswertung. Oliver Stedler, schnellste Runde seit dieses Rennens, 42,389 und mit einem Vorteil, das ist über 2,6 Sekunden zwischen ihm und der Emmanuel May auf Platz 2. Ich denke, dass der Pavel Wimmer hat eine Chance, aber ganz kurz hinter ihm ist der 412. aus Bulgarien, Ilian Jankov. Der startet auf Platz 6. Dann ist der Karl Luthard auf Platz 5. Und hinter ihm ist der... Nee, Positionswechsel habe ich schon möglich gemerkt. Aber bei der Karl Luthard bleibt der 422 auf Platz 5. Und jetzt ist hier, ich denke, dass vielleicht, dass der Yannick Remmert hat einen Platz verloren gegen der Jeroen Boss auf der 446. Das ist den Zweikampf für Platz 7 im Feld. All I'm going to say here, Oliver Stedler is putting on a clinic. He has got the lead, he is extending all the while, and nobody, and I repeat this, nobody can match him. And he's just put on another another half a second on Emmanuel Mai. Oliver Stedler is really putting himself in that, is really, it looks like him and the team have found a real sweet spot with that chassis here at Kerpen as we are past half distance. We are about to complete lap 11 out of 18. And Oliver Stedler, the young hotshot from Formula K SRP, representing this very nation, is absolutely flying. He is calm, and he's just crossed the line. Gap was nearly 3.5, it's nearly 3.7. Another 3/10 gained, and Emmanuel Mai is only just putting his fastest lap of the race. A personal best. And Mai, Wimmer, Jankov, they're all doing 42.6s. Stedler did a high 42.3. So that goes to show when you're on that, when you have, as I said, when you have found that the kart and driver are working together as one, it's a true joy to watch. Aber jetzt mit 6 Runden bis zum schwarz-weiß karierte Flagge. Vorteil zwischen Stedler und Mai auf Platz 1 und Platz 2. Jetzt in die Nähe von 4 Sekunden Vorteil in Richtung Stedler. Auf Platz 3 Pavel Wimmer. Vorne von Ilian Jankov, Karl Luthard auf Platz 5. Vorne von Jaden Göscheken, Jeroen Boss auf Platz 7. Vorne von Yannick Remmert. Nico Bogner auf Platz 9. Und jetzt der Pleubers, der 448, jetzt auf Platz 10. Und in letzter Runde seid bei der Oliver Stedler 42,439. Emmanuel Mai 42,706. Pavel Wimmer 42,745. Was kann man sagen, richtig bei der Leistung, den Konsistenz bei jeder Rundezeit bei der Oliver Stedler. So, letzte Runde seit 42,4. Davor nochmal wieder ein 42,4. Und auch so konsistent ist der junge deutsche Pilot. So 4 more laps to go, and the gap has now expanded between Oliver Stedler and Emmanuel Mai to 4.4 seconds. And over the last 4 laps, Oliver Stedler has been running consistently on the cusp of a 42.4 second lap time. If you wanted consistency, that young man is absolutely nailing it. And I think he's going to be a tough cookie when it comes to the final later on today. This KZ2 Cup will conclude round 4. Stedler out of the final corner. 3 laps to go. And Emmanuel Mai is finally starting to get away from Pavel Wimmer. Meantime, Karl Luthard has finally got through. Oh, and there's contact between him and Ilian Jankov. This could open the door for Jaden Göscheken. Maybe even Jeroen Boss is at the back end of the train. But that was nearly a stumble by Karl Luthard there through turn 2 at Schwitzgerher. And that could have opened the door for everyone to get on through on the 422 from Germany. Jetzt fährt der Oliver Städtler über Start und Ziel. 2 Runden bis zum Schwarz-Weiß-Karriere zur Flagge. Und Vorteil über Emmanuel May. Jetzt steigert bis zum 4,7 Sekunden. Das ist richtig unfassbar, kann man richtig sagen. Was für eine Leistung bei der Oliver Städtler. Und nochmal, was kann man sagen, mit einer Geschwindigkeit über das 1107 Meter lange Strecke. 94,14 km/h. Average Speed sozusagen. Und jetzt nochmal wieder über Start und Ziel. Letzte Runde läuft für Oliver Städtler. Absolut Hammer. Diese junge Deutsche könnte das vielleicht die Reise in eine erfolgreiche Karriere in die Zukunft für diese junge deutsche Pilot. Der 485 Oliver Städtler hat das ganze Rennen, dieses ganze Superheat bei KZ2 Cup dominiert. Von Start bis zum Ende. Letzte Kurve. Gratulation. Dominanz bei Oliver Städtler bei Superheat B nach 18 Runden mit einem Vorteil bei Rennsieg 4,7 Sekunden über Emmanuel May auf Platz 2, Pavel Wimmer aus Tschechien Platz 3, Karl Luthard, Ilian Jankov, Jaden Göschigen, Jerome Boz, Nico Bogner, Quincy Van Leuven und auf Platz 10 Nick Pleumers. Platz 11 aus Österreich, Adrian Martins, Oskar Steinbach auf Platz 12, vorne von Jason Deuverstein, Rick Hartmann, Svenja Dreher, Khalil Soda, Henrikas Klepikas, Dino Kalkum, Paulius Paskevicius und auf Platz 20 Kevin Hosenbeck von Schweden. Leider für die Yannick Remmert. Das hat leider nicht geklappt. Mit einer Runde bis zum Ende für der 481. Leider Pech für auch Nelson Berghaus und Valentin Knödel. Aber Dominanz bei Oliver Städtler in KZ2 Cup Superheat B hier in Kerpen.